So we saw Deadpool. Let's talk about that.
It was good. I was pleasantly surprised. Usually when you get to like the third or sometimes even the second of a movie, it's like starts to stink.
Yeah.
Those were pretty good. I like it because it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like it keeps this is a comedy with like, there's some like real stuff underneath, but it was mainly a comedy.
Yeah. And it was really good comedy.
It was quite funny. There are definitely some good bits. So definitely recommend it for those of you who haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I think it's too bad we haven't seen more. We haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine at all together up until now.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of the people who reads the comics.
There's that one like Wolverine Origins or X-Men Origins or something. One of those where it's just like the Wolverine story where he technically fights Deadpool, but I think that's been acknowledged as not the real Deadpool.
No. That was a really weird one. Because I think in that one, he couldn't heal, could he? Like they made him heal by the end, but in the beginning when you see him, he wasn't like...
Oh yeah, no, the beginning, Wade didn't heal, but by the end, they like combined a bunch of powers into him. He had everything. He could teleport, he could shoot lasers, he had adamantium skeleton,
like
I think.
Sword things.
Good
thankfully, this one was not silly. It was, but not in the same way.
Yeah. Recommend it for show. Faux show.
All right, jumping back into the Traitor.
The Traitor.
Where we left off last time, Alwyn had just returned back to Everdeen and the rest of the host to discover, just in time for her to catch her announcement of like she's kicking out all the Kareth people. She's not like ordered a genocide yet.
I forget. This isn't when he came back from the Kareth. This is when he came back from going to all the different dukes and stuff.
All his recruitment assignments.
Yeah. And I think that this move is kind of starting. Well, maybe it's already started, but it's like just another chip in his realization that everything's full on gray.
Yeah.
His older narrator self keeps saying like, it was at this moment where I should have been like, oh my gosh, she's freaking crazy.
Yeah, like
I think he said that a few times in this book. But
yeah. He's like mentioned a few times that this should have been a clue of like what was to come and stuff like that.
He'd never.
Yeah, and I don't remember. Was it mentioned before? I've always known that like Everdeen really didn't like the Kareth, but does it ever say why?
Yeah. So when she was a kid, she started having her visions, and her dad was trying to help them go away, and part of what he did is he hired or brought on some Kareth people, and apparently they did some magic on her that were quite painful.
Those people
like that.
Okay. I always knew that her dad hired people to like try to get rid of her visions and stuff, but I didn't realize they were Kareth. Yeah. Okay.
I think he tried a bunch of stuff, but Kareth was one of them.
Okay.
So,
but she's fallen racist now.
Yeah, she hates them. And then he's like, well, what about Lilat? And she's like, well, she can stay, but everyone else is gotta go.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny because the Kareth have kind of been like a background, but now at this point in the story, it almost seems like is that going to be like the next big war?
Honestly, the way everything is going, like how much longer would it take for her to go with like, you guys can't be here. Okay, now I want to kill you all. Especially, she's just super crazy. So I could totally see it going. I have had a vision. We need to kill all the Kareth people.
One of our predictions did come true in this stint of reading, though. Kind of jumping ahead.
Oh yeah, what was that?
That the narrator Alwyn is at some point he's like trying to redeem himself, or like it almost seems like he was regretting of his actions, and that definitely we see the beginning of that. Right? Where you're at?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we can talk about what leads up to that, though.
Yes, let's. I don't know. We're pretty close to the point where Alwyn kind of does a little flip. Which, like, I thought it was kind of funny this whole time. Maybe I was getting confused thinking that it was the future Alwyn who was writing this that was saying it, but he always seemed to be like, she's not really the martyr, but oh well. Yeah.
And then he would even say, like, if only I'd been here to, like, because when he got back from the Kareth and he saw all the terrible things happening, and when he got back and found out she wanted to get rid of all the Kareth, he's like, if I had only been here to advise her, she wouldn't have done this. And so you're like, don't you realize, dude, that if you're not there and she's going to do something crazy, that she's probably just crazy.
Yeah, literally. I actually kind of didn't like how the flip for Alwyn went down. More so like it didn't feel like he was like, oh, this is actually so wrong. I shouldn't be helping Evadine. I need to go find her enemies now and try to take her down. No, it was more like, oh, she knows that I lied to her, so I'm gonna run away and try to take her down now. It didn't really feel like he was like remorseful or.
I can see that. It kind of felt the same as like also they're in love. It just kind of seemed like they're in love because
of this connection, I guess.
That's the way I'm justifying it. I don't know if it was necessarily written that way. It just didn't really feel like it. I was like, okay. And maybe that was intentional, where it was like obvious to everyone, including us, the reader, that Alwyn was just totally hoodwinked and they were not in love. She's just a full-on crazy lady.
Yeah. Was there any... Man, it's been so long since I read like the Blood Song series. Was there any sort of romance stuff in that one?
Yeah, I don't remember the characters' names, but
how do you remember,
it was like the main character, and then there was a woman from like the healing people.
Okay, but kind of what I'm trying to get at was like, was it convincing? Did you feel like, oh yeah, they love each other, or was it kind of like, do they, or are they just in love?
I feel like it was more convincing than Alwyn and Evadine.
Oh, okay,
because it's just, I don't know, the whole thing with Alwyn, because in Blood Song, you know, like pretty much the first half of the book covers a span of years of this guy training to become like one of the best warriors that's ever existed in this time frame, and due to his powers. Whereas Alwyn, the first book is like, I was an outlaw, I was a prisoner in the pits, and now I'm the confidant of the most powerful woman in the entire kingdom, and everyone, as soon as they see me, sees how amazing I am. Yeah. Because of that's how the book is.
Yeah. And this series came after Bloodsong, right?
And there's just so many times too where like I've just been like, yeah, this came after Bloodsong. There's been so many times in the book though where they're like, where they go to a new place and then Alwyn in his mind is like, oh yeah, I came here with Deccan and so I know everything about it. And it's like,
it definitely feels that way.
I feel like you guys were like in the Chevine forest most of the time. Then all of a sudden they're like 300 miles away and they're like, oh yeah, we came here with Deccan a few times. I know the area. I'm like, dude, you met Deccan when you were 8 and he died when you were like 15. Are you telling me that in like that tiny ass amount of time you did a lifetime of living and traveling?
Yeah, it is true.
And then just I've also never felt, we've talked about this before, so I won't to go too much into it, but it's just like every time Alwyn meets someone, they're like, you're amazing and you're the best and I trust you, and like instantly. And even when he's done some pretty heinous, terrible things, like I don't know.
No, I get what you're saying. Where you're coming from. It does feel like he just suddenly knows.
Yeah, and there's other times too that started kind of starting to bug me. I don't know why Anthony keeps using this little phrase, but he always says things like, Alwyn's like, to my scholarly eyes, I saw this and knew this. And I'm like, okay, I just don't like when authors like force feed me stuff like that just kind of like act as an explanation. Because if you think about it, Alwyn really isn't a scholar. I mean, yeah, he's smart. Yeah, he's curious and he wants to learn and do stuff. But I mean, he had a few years under Silda, but that was mainly like teaching him how to read and to write and teaching him like covenant stuff and maybe some political things, but not really much. And then he went to that one sanctuary city. He was there for like 6 months.
Yeah,
I don't know the exact time frame. And then he joined Evadine's army. And then he went to a library, in a great library for a little bit. For like 3 months. And then also we're supposed to expect that he's like a world-leading scholar and that monarchs trust his counsel above anyone. Right? Like when you break it down like that, you're like, yeah, that's bullshit. Like that doesn't make any damn sense at all.
No, you're ruining the story. No, I don't think you're ruining the story. But it definitely, it feels like Anthony wants Alwyn to be like this all-around perfect like protagonist in the story. Like he just is good at everything that he has to do, and that's just because. But there's nothing to support it.
There's no background. Like why should I trust that he's such an amazing scholar when he literally has like no experience?
Yeah.
But
really the only thing he should be good at, I think there's 2 things he should be good at. He should be a decent swordsman because he's actually had training.
Yeah, but not that much.
But that's why I say decent. Like he probably, I could
decent compared. Like if you actually, I agree with you because most of the people he fights are peasants that were forced into labor and given a pitchfork.
Yeah. So if he can hold his own against someone with a pitchfork, just going, but like that's
every well-trained knight he's gone against is whooped.
Whenever he talks about Lord, what's his face? He was the father of King Thomas. I forget his name.
Albert?
I think something like that.
Or,
but like,
the guy who gave him cracked his skull.
Was that him? The same guy?
No, it was someone else. But I thought that's what you're talking about.
No, but I'm talking about the knight that is still alive, like the only one now.
Oh, the champion.
Yeah, the king's champion.
Yeah,
who was
Albert.
Also Albert. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's pronounced Albert if I remember correctly.
I've been reading The Way of Kings while we've been reading this too, and Elokar is like eating my brain. So I'm just like, it's Lord, the E name.
You're like Lord Elokar.
Yeah, exactly. But like every time he talks about him, it's just like he is flabbergasted because his skill is so amazing and way above.
Even the traitors, not the traitor, the pretenders battle. Remember where he waded in, and then when Alwyn found him, he was surrounded by dead people, and he was like practically unscathed.
Yeah.
So like he's
just
definitely
monstrously more skilled. Yeah. So I still think he's decent at the sword. He might be able to, like where everyone else is just gonna die really quick by Albert's blade. Well, he might be able to get a few blocks in there before he's dead or something like that.
I think it would only be because Albert was toying with him.
Yeah, it could be.
Because remember when he was fighting Rolgarth?
Yeah.
And Rolgarth, even like 2 days off of his sick bed, almost dying, like had no problem beating Alwyn. And I don't think Rolgarth is as good as Albert.
I don't think he is.
And
so he might be a decent swordsman. But
I think there's even one battle where they were fighting. Actually, I won't mention this because it's not where you're at yet. But
spoilers.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I would be convinced that he's actually good at is being a scribe. Like I think he has really good at writing stuff, and that's
he's good at he has very good calligraphy handwriting.
Yeah. And one thing that I just don't like is why is he such a good strategist? It seemed like he would go into council with Everdeen and be able to come. He was the one who made the plan that was successful. It's like, how you didn't do anything? You had like no battle school.
I think he's just trying to make him. Maybe he's just trying to make him out to be like one of those geniuses that just
that's what
instantly get book smart, but they don't actually know how to do stuff. But
man, the thing for me is I've read books where there's people like that, and they still have something to support that. They have there's some reason why this person is good at whatever the author is saying he's good at.
Yeah.
But like Alwyn, it's like.
Because he is, and just shut up and read the book. Yeah. Still a good book. Still recommend it, but
there's definitely still, it's
annoying.
It's annoying, and that makes this series low on my list. I think this is. I usually have like two categories of books for myself.
Yeah.
One is like Brandon Sanderson's books. He is the author made for me, and so that. Just makes I just like all of his books. I have not been disappointed in the least with any of his books.
Even his kids' books.
Yeah,
books made for children. I'm like
so yes. Like with Brandon's books, I could read a series and love it, and then maybe like a few years down the road, be like, oh, I want to read that series again. But unfortunately, Anthony's book doesn't make the cut for me. I'm gonna read this series till we're done, but then it's gonna.
Probably never going to pick it up again. Yeah, I'm probably never going to pick it up again. Not true about Bloodsong. I don't know what it was with Bloodsong.
Bloodsong, I want to reread that series.
Seriously, like, super good book.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
I wonder how this is going to affect us if we ever try to read his other series, whatever the dragon one is.
Yeah, maybe we'll get to that.
I hope we do, because that one actually, like, really caught my attention. Like,
oh, really?
This one snagged me, and I was, like, interested in it, but that one I was like, what the heck is this world?
Maybe we'll try that one next. Or a few times. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, so Alwyn gets a little screwed over because somebody shows up. I forgot his name. Halbert or something.
Yeah, so apparently there's like this book of prophecy from a martyr years past that prophesied of Everdeen, and it's like written in this book in a language that no one knows. Except for this one aspirant. I don't think it was an aspirant, right? Was it an aspirant or ascendant? I forget the titles in this book, but
and there's also so many people. This feels like a high fantasy where there's
one perspective.
So many characters. Yeah, from one perspective.
So there's like as many characters as a high fantasy, but it's from one POV. Yeah. So it's kind of like it's extra hard to keep track of the characters. But there's one religious scholar who knows how to translate this book. Oh, that's right. It was like it was encoded. It was like you had to decipher it. That's right. It wasn't like in a different language.
And it's not the same book, if I remember right. It's not the same book that the Sack Witch gave
No,
him.
this is a different book. But it does prophesy of Everdeen. And Alwyn says, like, your most important task is to translate this and get it to me. But the dude translated it and brought it to Everdeen.
Yeah, and apparently in this translation or decoding, it says how she actually is risen.
Yeah, it says that she'll think that she was risen, but she was actually some Careth Wright. So she's all pissed, and then Captain Swain already kind of confessed to her, so she like already knew, and then in that moment. But I guess I'll set up the backdrop to that because I think the backdrop's really important. So at this point, Everdeen, she's gone like almost completely off the handles, like she's becoming really fanatical. And I forget how she gets that one Duke. There's that one Duke that's like super loyal to her for some reason. I forget where he comes in.
Hey, he kind of came out of nowhere, I felt like, but I don't remember his name.
Something with an R.
But like,
I forget how he joined up with them.
It almost seems like they are the thugs that realize that Everdeen is some crazy tyrant who will let them do what they want.
Yeah, they become like they become basically her enforcers and her financials.
Because like they feel completely different. Like everyone up until now that Everdeen has recruited felt like they were like faithful followers. Like she is the risen martyr and she is doing all these good things. She's going to make this place better, and that's why they followed her. But these new guys under this Duke, it's almost like we just want to kill and plunder and do all these horrible things and get away with it. So we're going to join her.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So they kind of seem like they come out of nowhere. But basically, them and then Everdeen says that she convinces all her followers that the Alganthanites are the Malicite. They're like the ruling monarchy in Aldermain. But she convinces everyone that they're of the Malicite, the evil, so they need to go get them. So they march onto the capital, Corrival. But when they get there, it's been abandoned pretty much. Like there's still people there, but there's no soldiers. The gates are open and the royals are gone. And Everdeen allows her army to totally sack the city.
Yeah.
Alwyn doesn't take part of it. Him and his scout company are kind of up on a hill watching. And then the great chapel, which is like apparently like this big, huge symbol for their faith, is burned down. And so that's kind of the backdrop. So at this point, Everdeen's crazy bodyguards come to Alwyn and say, "You've been summoned." And then they take him to Everdeen, and on the steps of the burning chapel, this is where she kind of confronts him and is like, "What happened?" So it was pretty crazy. And
he deduced that he saw Captain Swain there looking like he'd just been reprimanded and looking ashamed and stuff. And then Halbert is there, I'm pretty sure. And then he deduces like, "I can't lie," and he tells the truth.
Yeah, and then she like attacks him, but Swain gets in the way and gets killed, and then Everdeen's like, "You killed him."
I hated that. I was like,
but then he starts to go after Everdeen. I'm like, I don't even think Alwyn could take on Everdeen.
I don't think he could. Everdeen has definitely been like one of those she's on a whole nother level with her sword skills.
But it doesn't come to that. They don't cross swords because the thugs we mentioned before, the Duke's men-at-arms, kind of surround him and beat the crap out of him and throw him in prison, where and then he's labeled a traitor. And then he kind of mentions that this was, because up to this point he's always said this, he's like, whenever Everdeen does something, he's like, the artists got this really well, except I'm not in it. But now we kind of figure out why, because when she throws him in prison and brands him a traitor, he's like, and it's from this point on that my presence with Everdeen was purged from the histories, like it was as if I was never there. And he apparently got her pregnant, but she's saying that the Seraphal came and gave her child instead of saying him, so she's just completely cut him off, and they're purging him from the histories. That's why he's like, every time he says like, this artwork was so beautiful, but I wasn't in it. And this art was so beautiful, I was in it, but I looked like a villain. And it's because of this moment when Everdeen...
Because it's like what they say, like the victor writes history.
Yeah, 100%. That's what happened. So... But yeah, at this point, Alwyn's like, I gotta get up on out of here. And he tries to devise this escape plan, but luckily he has allies that devised one for him as well.
And I was actually really surprised on who came to rescue him.
So was I, actually.
This is one of the last people I would have thought Ian would come get him, or the widow lady, Juliana, or something like that, or something like that, or one of his scout company, but...
Nope, it was Willem.
Willem, of all people.
Yeah, Willem came and busted him out. And Unfortunately, Lilat dies pretty terribly, apparently. Because she went, as soon as he got captured, she went in right after him, but she got busted and then tortured and hung.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks for her.
Yeah, seriously. Done nothing but been loyal and then gets murdered for it.
Straight up murdered.
And there was all the other people. The doctor guy, something or whatever.
Oh, yeah, Delric.
He comes and, like, takes care of Alwyn after he got attacked and beat up. And then Alwyn's like, you need to leave. You gotta just get out of here. And he doesn't listen. And then he's one of the people you see hung up next to Lilat, I think.
Yeah. So there's another person there too. I think it was Hilbert.
Oh, was it?
I don't remember. There was 3 people there, I thought.
How many people? Because there was Swain, Alwyn, the doctor.
And Willem. They're all the ones that knew what really happened.
I wonder if it was Hilbert, because, like...
I thought there was someone else.
I wonder if it was Hilbert, because, like, she was trying to get rid of any evidence that anyone who knew that she's not actually a risen martyr and that she's some fraud. Yeah. But we do learn something interesting about this. I think they mentioned it here, where she still hasn't been faking her visions. Yeah,
they just don't come from the Seraphile. They doesn't say this outright in the book, but it seems like they come from the Malicite, probably.
Yeah. I mean, where else would they come from, I guess?
Yeah, that's true.
Which is unfortunate for them, because she still get these visions and what she should do, and then she's conquering everything.
Yeah. And at this point on in the story, she takes out all stops and just begins what Alwyn says is the second scourge. She just starts, like, massacring people and killing people, and her followers are like, if you don't bend the knee to her, they kill you, and, like, it creates a whole environment of, like, your neighbor will snitch on you and like do all these things, and so it gets pretty bad.
Yeah.
But before all that, I forget what happens, because he escapes. He finds out that the scout company, most of his people in the scout company are with him.
Yeah.
So, like, Tiller, Ian, Julina.
Yeah, and actually at this point, before Alwyn was found out, the widow Julina laughed. She was like, "This isn't going to end. Like, this is just going to be war upon war upon war, and I'm done with this bloodshed." And she was like, "I'm going to go across the sea," and she left. But then she comes back, and she didn't have money to go across the sea.
That's what she says. But she loves Alwyn a bit.
Yeah, that's part of it. Maybe they'll end up together and have kids and stuff after all this.
And then Ebony will be like, how dare you?
Yeah, she'll be dead by now. Yeah, now they've got this whole rebellion thing going on.
Yeah.
Where Alwyn was able to meet up with Princess Lenore.
Yeah, because he's like, okay, we got to stop Evadine now. Like, we made her into this, and she's declared herself queen, and she's just completely off the bars, crazy. We need to stop her. And the best way to do that is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yeah. So he goes to Leonore, and he discovers her. They originally wanted to go with her mainly because she had an army. But then when he finally catches up, he finds out that army clashed with Evadine and got totally routed. And, like, brutally massacred. Even Evadine's dad.
Yeah.
They found him, like, tied up, like, almost crucified and, like, half dead. And, like, he was forced to watch all his men be decapitated and defaced and tortured. And it was just, like, total, like, madness.
Yeah.
Like, the kind of scene you would expect, like, from Orcs of Mordor.
Yeah,
like,
literally.
People like they had like heretic written on their forehead while they were still alive, and then beheaded and dismembered and tortured,
and it's become like completely flipped. Like, this whole time, like, Evadine would only, like, kill you if you were, like, forced her to, but now it's like they go to these towns and everyone's dead. Women, men, and children have all been killed. Mm-hmm. And
like burned alive, like trapped inside buildings.
Yeah, and it's just like you see all the signs of the people who are not killing because they have to, but they're killing because they want to and they enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty obvious now, and I think Alwyn's like, how was I so stupid? And he's mentioned it several times. He's like, I can't believe I didn't see this.
And one thing I'm just not convinced of. I'm just not convinced that he thought Evadine was doing the right thing. He just was like, oh, she looks good naked. So
that's totally what it boils down to. Because I mean,
So
and then I think it was the second book, even, or maybe even the first book, where he was just like, didn't even give a crap about Evadine. He was like, it's the first chance we get, we're out of here. And Tori was like, heck yeah, we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah.
But then he keeps being like, oh, no, I'm going to stay. Oh, no, I'll stay. Oh, actually, I love her, and we're going to have sex all the time.
Yeah, I definitely don't buy it. I don't buy the love. I'm like, okay.
And it even brings up, like, when she killed that Luminarch guy. He reminisces on that because they killed him and then had sex right next to his freshly corpse body.
Yeah, covered in blood, too. I'm pretty sure they were... Alwyn had just been captured, and she was saving him. That what happened. And then... Yeah. But they had a little bit of a battle on them, and that'd be gross. I don't think I could ever do that.
So that's obviously...
Let's go take a shower first.
That is just, like, not normal. No. But Alwyn, I don't know, he wanted some spell or something, I don't know.
Yeah, and Alwyn doesn't use his brain in those situations.
No, he doesn't. But they're able to find Leonore and what's left of her retinue, which is basically her children, I think does she have 2 sons or just the 1 son?
I swear it's just the 1 son, and then it was that
Lady Ducinda,
the one that Alwyn saved.
So it's them and Sir Elbert. They find them in some backwater shrine, the one that Silda went to.
Yeah, and one of the most unfortunate parts is when they met up with them. They had a battle with Evanine's forces, and they met up with Ophelia. They met against Ophelia, and like
Ophelia found them too at that place. She was sent by Evadine to kill
that's probably
Leonore.
what it was.
Yeah.
And so they
found him there, and then the scout company with Alwyn and Sir Elbert fought and eventually be able to win against Ophelia.
Yeah. The thing I was saying was unfortunate is like they lost half their forces. Alwyn was saying it's like they don't have men to spare. Really.
It's not even like it doesn't seem like they had that many people. I'm picturing like 50 people.
Yeah, seriously.
So
Ophelia must not have had that many people either. Or something.
Yeah, and I think they also had surprise because if you remember, the archers came up and were shooting, and they're trying to go through a swamp, and I think so that helped a little bit. And they had Sir Elbert, which is like almost a company unto himself.
Yeah,
I thought this was a funny part too in this battle that just proves how like really inept at battle Alwyn is, or maybe just not. He's not. I don't think he's physically imposing.
I doubt.
Because there's one point where they're all fighting, and he bumps into Sir Elbert and almost like falls over, and he's all like, and Sir Elbert's like, "Oh, sorry, scribe." I don't know why I thought that was funny. I was like, stupid Alwyn. Yeah, you twig of a scholar. But yeah, then after this, we're kind of left where Alwyn kind of confesses his wrongness to Leonore, and she does kind of seem, I think Ryan Anthony kind of gives them a little bit of like, oh, you little son of a bitch, like, but okay, come on in here.
Yeah.
Like, didn't really seem like, because he basically orchestrated what had just happened. He was the council that got Evadine to where she was, and that deposed Leonore and all her people. So pretty much almost all of the blood and wars and desecration is definitely at Evadine's feet, but Alwyn kind of is like an enabler for sure.
He's got plenty of blood on his hands for sure.
And so to take all of that into account, and then to have Leonore be like, you son of a gun.
Yeah. Come
on in, you're now my top war counselor, and you're going to be the general of my army that we're going to take against Evadine.
Yeah, so there it goes again. Like,
I'm like, what?
Yeah, that definitely would not be something that would happen. There's just no way someone would trust.
It's not that many
him.
years have passed. He's like, what, 25 maybe at this point, 26?
Yeah, something like that.
And he has like, I mean, he's seen a lot of battles, but he's never commanded any of the battles, and he's come up with some clever stratagems, like the boards to hold up against oil and like where to attack the wall. But I mean,
yeah, but that just...
He doesn't have experience in raising an army. He doesn't have experience in training an army. He doesn't have experience in the logistics of an army. Like, he's just kind of a smart kid with good handwriting, and that can tell if someone's lying.
I just want it to be something like he spent 3 weeks studying in the library, and he only read battle reports and battle strategies and what failed and what worked, and that's how he was able to...
It was all religious. His instruction with Silda was all religious.
Yeah, like history. There was like history of the religion and all the... Yeah,
he even said himself that her training didn't really cover politics when he got out.
Yeah, so how the heck?
And so
it doesn't make sense.
There's just no... you agree with me. Like, there's just no actual foundation that I can kind of be like... Even like, I can't even be like, yeah, okay. I think it makes sense. But it's kind of just like, this is the perfect example of what we've been talking about, what we hate, where authors just give their character something and say because.
I don't even feel like we're getting the because. Like, it's just like, Alwyn can do this. Keep reading. Because I don't even, it just doesn't even feel like we got he can do it just because. Like, there's just nothing there. It's, he can do this, and that's just the end of the sentence.
Yeah. There are some parts later on that were really bugging me, because I mentioned this before, but I don't know why I don't like it when authors overuse certain phrases. And the most overused phrase in this is Alwyn will say, "To my outlaw eyes," or "to my scribe eyes," or "to my scholar eyes."
Right.
I'm like, dude, just stop.
Right. Just say
you find a different way to say this interested Alwyn, and he kind of like knew a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Because he's always like if something's happening with like thievery or unlawfulness, he's like, "To my outlaw eyes, I knew exactly what to do." Or if it's like at a church, he's like, "To my scholarly eyes, I knew exactly what that meant." Or like, "To my scribe eyes, I knew exactly how to read this." I don't know. It's just getting annoying.
Yeah.
It just kind of feels like way overused.
Yeah, definitely. There's a series I really want to read, but I'm kind of scared because of that. It's the same guy who wrote these books, John Gwynne here.
Okay.
He's got another series called like The Shadow of the Gods, The Hunger of the Gods, and he wanted to find a new way to say like, he was thinking this. And apparently, if I remember this right, the way that they refer to it is the thought cage. Like, it's not like, I had this thought in my brain. It's like, my thought cage. And apparently he uses that a lot. Like,
really?
He just says thought cage this, thought cage that. I'm like, I don't want to, that scares me. Because like...
Anthony Ryan does something similar in this, where when Alwyn says, I don't think he does it much in this third book, but he did in the first two books, where whenever Alwyn like had to hold back from saying something, he's like, "I caged my words." Did you notice that?
No, I'm glad I didn't.
It annoyed the crap out of me. So every time it was like Alwyn had wanted to do a retort, it would be like, "But I caged my words."
Okay, I remember saying that.
You'd be like, "Oh, that's the face of someone caging their words." And I'm like, dude, use a different word. But anyways, yes, I hate that too. So,
oh gosh,
hearing that about that series, I'm already not gonna read it.
I really still want to read it because it sounds like a really good series. And one guy I heard from did say like he doesn't use it really that often, but it still is like a weird thing to say it thought cage instead of whatever. So it's just kind of something that really sticks out to the readers. And like, this is annoying. Yeah. So I think where I kind of ended on this is
so basically, yeah. So they decide to leave. They're kind of going.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Alwyn convinces everyone to go meet with that like outlaw queen lady.
No, they just stumble into her. I thought.
I don't remember.
I think they were gonna go hide in the Shiveen forest. I thought.
Oh, for some reason I thought they
were going somewhere, and then along the road they all of a sudden saw like a few hundred like men at arms, and they're like, "Oh crap, we're all gonna die." This is Evanine saw a vision, but then it was that outlaw queen.
Yeah, I remember she was leaving. She was going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, they stumble on each other, and then they form an alliance, and she's like, "I don't have an army, and I don't have any money, but I do have a fleet." And so they go to this port town, and there's like a bunch of boats there.
Yeah.
That's not really like a military
And I think
fleet.
This was...
it's more like smugglers and merchants. Man.
Right. This was like a divine whatever, if that makes sense. Like, because he ends up meeting up with Toria again.
Yeah.
Which we haven't seen since book 1.
Yeah. Toria had her own adventures, and she's a captain of a ship now.
Yeah. And like the heir of this other guy who's got a pretty big
merchant empire.
Yeah. So she's had a very profitable time away from Alwyn. Yes. And it's kind of like, you should have went with her.
Yeah. So it turns out they found the Laughlin's hoard. The actual gold was out of reach. There's apparently this super deep pool of water that I don't know. It didn't really say how deep it was. She just said the person couldn't go down there. So maybe if you had scuba gear, you could go and get it. But.
Yeah. Or if you could be like, you could train yourself, because I remember like seeing interviews and stuff with like the people who did the new Avatar movie, The Way of Water, and like they actually had to film a lot in water, and they learned to hold their breath for like 6-7 minutes, something like that.
That's crazy.
But she doesn't know that. So,
but they did find a chest full of maps and charts that allowed the current captain, I forget his name, like Din Sum or something like that. I don't know. Din Djarin. No, what is that from, Din Djarin?
Oh, Din Djarin is the Mandalorian.
Oh, okay. I was like, that's somebody. Who was that?
It took me a second there too. Like, I don't know what that did do.
It was like Dip Daloo or something. Something weird.
Yeah, it was like Don something or other.
Don Joaquin.
Don Joy. I don't remember his name.
Something like that.
Actually, for some reason, it really bugged me that it always said his two names, which I'm sure it's like Mary Bell or whatever. Like the person's name is Mary Bell, not Mary, last name Bell or whatever. But it always made me feel like it was doing his full name. So I just thought it was okay. It's just Don, because I was like, I don't want to read both words.
Anyway, apparently the charts revealed new paths to different things and somehow allowed him to become a merchant empire, pretty much.
Yeah.
So in gratitude of finding that treasure, because Tori led him to it, he adopted her as a daughter, gave her the ship Storm Crow, I think it was called, and made her heiress of his empire.
And that's as far as we're going to go this time. We're going to learn why it was very good that Alwyn met up with Toria again.
Yep. We're going to figure out what happens. We're going to see if Alwyn and Leonore can muster an army to defeat Evadine, or what exactly is going to happen. Oh, by the way, the cover, I wanted to mention this. I think that cover is when he's fighting...
when they're
in
like he's trying to go,
and he's going after Evadine. I think that's that scene.
I see. I can see it. Yeah.
Because I remember the city was burning around them, and they're at the thing there, and you can see the men at arms that he had to fight that surrounded them. I think that's that. I think that's what that scene is right there. So. Yeah, I was going to mention that. I forgot.
I love when they do that. When you can like, oh yeah, this is the scene.
I love that too. I really like that. Like on Way of Kings.
Yeah.
When it's is it Dalinar that's saluting that Parshendi woman or something? I don't know who it was, but
I don't remember.
Anyway,
it's not too long. So this is actually going. This book is going in a way that I was kind of like relieved at. I didn't necessarily get burned out, but I kind of got sick of like them just going around conquering everything with Evadine. I was like, okay, progress the story. So I was kind of like, oh, finally. I had wondered when it was going to come out, because I think it was obvious that it was going to come out that Evadine is not the risen martyr, and that she was actually healed by some Caerith witch.
Yeah.
It was pretty obvious that was going to happen, and I was wondering if that was going to happen, like if it was going to be like, oh, Alwyn lied to me, oh, I'm dead, and all is good. If it was going to be like the last like 100 pages or something like that, or if it was going to be something like this, where it happened earlier on in the book.
Where now like the first half of the book was that, now the next half of the book is going to be
it's going to be about
how this all resolves.
Usurping.
So definitely curious to see how it ends.
Yeah. I've got not super high hopes, but I've got like reasonable hopes that this book is going to end satisfactorily.
Hope so.
Maybe
I'm curious how he's going to tie it up, because Anthony's put himself in quite the predicament, because I guess we'll talk about this next week, but
do tell anyway.
So where I'm at, I'm a little ahead. They're talking about how all across Albermain, she's just committing atrocity after atrocity after atrocity, and just pretty much like has wiped out almost entire places.
Yeah.
Like they travel through Alundia at one point. It's just like ghost towns everywhere. Like everyone's just dead. And so I will not be satisfied if it's like we defeat Evadine and now everything is good.
Yeah.
I think I would be fine if it was something like we defeated Evadine and now we have years of recovery ahead of us or something like that. But
yeah, that would make a lot more sense. I don't think it would work, because
it's definitely not going to be a good. Like it's going to be good because they defeat Evadine, but they're quite up the shithole.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like they've had how many wars up to this point? They had the
Pretender,
the Pretenders
several times.
They had the Traitor's Field, the Pretenders War. So those were the two with the Pretend King, and then they went against Alundia. Oh no, it was Traitor's Field, Alundia, Pretenders War, and then they went to, I don't know. There's just wars everywhere. Like people are just like going crazy and dying all over the place.
Yeah.
So.
One thing I don't want it to end up being is like I really like the Harry Potter series, but I think it's more so because of like nostalgic reasons. But one thing that just kills me is I want, and this isn't just Harry Potter. This is with a lot of books where like it's just like, oh, this really big evil bad thing that we've been fighting with everything we have is finally defeated and over, and at the end. So it's like, wait a minute, give us something. What happened? How was the cleanup? Because like you hear throughout the series how the first go around with Voldemort before he tried to kill Harry, there's like you hear about what happened afterwards, how they had to round up all the Death Eaters and figure out who was actually a Death Eater and who was under the Imperious Curse or was bullied or whatever into doing what Voldemort wanted, to try and stay alive. And they had to do all this cleanup, and then even 11 years after this happened, and from the first book to the 7th book, and probably even farther on, like Voldemort's reign was so scarring and scary that they don't even dare speak his name. So it's just like,
that's a good point.
I want to go through the process of how the Wizarding world recovered. What did they do? What did they have to go through?
That's a good point, actually, because the second go around was even worse. The Ministry fell.
Yeah.
And
freaking took over the Ministry.
It was over.
Yeah.
It was over. And Hogwarts was the last stronghold, and they managed to beat them there. So, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's definitely... Now I'm mad now, too, Dan.
Right.
Because now it's just like, the epilogue, 10 years later, now our kids are going to Hogwarts. I was
kind of
woo!
So that kills me more because it was 19 years later. Like, that is a massive amount of time that this like isn't good enough. I want more.
Yeah.
What was Hagrid's status? What happened to him? What happened to the school afterwards? How long did the repairs take? Who took over the school? Because there's like, I don't know what rumors have been like confirmed by J.K. Rowling or if it's just like fan theories, but like people say like, oh, McGonagall took over this school. Like, did she though?
Because the only thing we get is that Neville's the herbology teacher, right?
Yeah, and Hagrid's still there because I remember in that last little like epilogue or whatever they talk about, don't forget you've got tea with Hagrid at 5:00 and say hello to Neville for us. They said Professor Longbottom or something like that. So there's like two little things that kind of gives it, right. But it doesn't say anything about.
Did Harry? He became an Auror, right?
It doesn't even say that. It doesn't tell you what his career is. He's 19 years out of Hogwarts.
So
he still has like young kids.
So he was 17 at the end of it. So 19 years later, he's in his 40s.
Yeah.
Right, 17 plus 19.
I think he's a little less than that, but he's closer to 40 than he is to 30. He's probably like 37 or something like that, but do the math.
I have to do the math. It's going to bug me. Well, 36. I was way off.
Okay.
Yeah, so 36. But still,
I mean, like,
considering in the Wizarding world where you're an adult at 17.
Yeah. And I want, maybe it's because the Harry Potter series was just such a massive success, and it's so, like, I'm one of the fans who wants more, because, like, in that 19 years, like, what the heck happened? Because I definitely want to know what happened with, not only with Ron, Harry, and Hermione, like, what happened with them and their careers, where did they go, what did they do, but everyone else, like, how did, I always forget which twin it was, but I think it was Fred who survived, and George was the one who got killed. How the heck did Fred survive the rest? Because through the entire series, they are so close, and they're so like in sync with all their thinking, their humor, and what they want, what they like, what they don't like. That's like, how do you survive with everything like that? And then there's also Harry and Ginny raising Lupin and Tonks's kid as his, since he was made the godfather of Teddy. I think Teddy Tonks.
So did he start raising him right away?
I assume so, because
so like you're 17, just had the big battle, and you're like, here's a baby.
Literally, because he was the godfather, and so that
means Ginny was still in school while he was raising.
Yeah,
the kid.
She had 1 year later. I don't know if she left.
Still, but in our
she was
terms,
only in her 6th year.
In our terms, that's like if I'm 19 and I'm not in high school anymore, and my girlfriend who's 18 and has another year of senior in high school, and also I have a kid to raise, and then we get married later. So that's kind of weird.
Yeah. So, like, what happens with all of that? And
another thing I've always been peeved about, too, is I don't care. I know that Snape redeemed himself at the end, but I would not have named my kid after him.
I didn't.
No way. Like, I would have been like, he sucked as a teacher. He was cruel. My entire time I knew him, he was ruthless to kids just because he was some jackass.
Literally.
But, actually, he did it because he was a stalker and loved my mom and hated my dad, but loved my mom. But he was a weird stalker, made him join Voldemort, and it's because of him that my parents died. But he was really sad about it, and his Patronus led me to this. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess in the end, he was an okay guy, and I don't hate him anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not naming my kid after him.
Seriously, you could totally, I think you connect Snape with Alwyn. Like, Alwyn did all these terrible things, but Leonore should not trust him at all and forgive him. And, of course, she's not going to name one of her kids after him. That's ridiculous.
Because even like, if you think about it further, Snape became the headmaster and let those Death Eaters literally torture kids using the Cruciatus Curse. Yeah,
and telling the kids to use the Cruciatus Curse on each other.
And so, I mean, I understand he was a deep agent, but that's not someone I'm naming my kid after. There's no way. My entire experience in the wizarding world, you go in from the first book, it's suspecting him as the one trying to break into the Chamber of Secrets, and just, I don't know. The whole experience with Snape is, maybe I'm just all like, can't forgive, but I'm like, I'm not naming my kid after this guy. I think you have a
very valid point, because he did turn out to be the good guy in the end, and but he still was the biggest ass who should not have been a teacher. He was way too cruel with everyone. You mostly see it with like Harry and then Ron and Hermione, but throughout the series you get little snippets where like he was cruel to everyone except the Slytherins. And it definitely was just like, he's like a massive abuser and should not be a teacher. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's because he is this spy for Dumbledore that he was able to even get a job. Well, I think that's why he got the job in the first place, but why he was tolerated this entire time. Because even like, you look at the other teachers and they weren't mean, but like McGonagall, for example, she was super strict. Yeah, and if you did something, she'd be like, you better freaking stop that or I'm going to... But they deserved it. They did something they deserved.
But when you have a student that goes in front of a creature that literally can see into your soul and become what you fear above anything in the world, and it comes out as a teacher that kid has to be around and learn from, that's a dang sign.
Yeah,
if I was Lupin, I'd be like, hey, dude, Dumbledore... This Boggart's showing up as Snape for this poor kid. Like, we can't just take this. This is a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah. Like,
he can't be abused to the point where his greatest fear above anything in this world, where freaking basilisks live,
literally,
that he's scared of this teacher that so much that it's the thing he fears above anything in this world.
That's what's so crazy about
it. And it's
when
not
you
just
look
like,
at
I'm
movies.
afraid of him. Like, the Boggart literally just becomes what you are just innately terrified of. And I'm like, it's like, man, I'm getting all worked up.
Yeah. And we go even further on this, and like when like Harry in the end tries to be like, hey, do not trust Snape. He tries to convince everyone that he is the bad guy, which he is in some way, and it's not. But like, I hated how everyone was so defensive of Snape, because like, have you guys paid attention at how Snape treats him and other students? Like, Harry has every dang reason to not trust Snape. Snape has done nothing to make himself a trustworthy person. He literally, in the 5th book, he only trusts Snape because he has no one else.
I don't forget why he trusts Snape in the 5th book.
It's because, so at the end of the 5th book is when Harry is having like dreams of... He has a dream of Arthur getting attacked in the...
Snape has to train him with Legitimens or whatever it's called.
Yeah, and then Harry has another dream later, and it's of Voldemort torturing Sirius, but like Voldemort was putting that in his head, trying to get Harry to go to the Ministry, and then so he's stuck at the school being tortured by Toadface. What's her name?
Toadface.
Yeah, she's that really evil teacher who is not a Death Eater.
Oh, Umbridge.
Like, she's torturing him, trying to find out stuff, and then Snape comes in, and he's literally the only person he can say, because I don't remember if he's in the movie he's like tied up, but in the book he might not be. I don't remember what.
Oh, yeah, because that's right. Because he said he has Padfoot, right?
Yeah, he has Padfoot in the place it's hidden, and so he literally that's the only time Snape like comes through until the end, when he you find out that he was actually a good guy as an agent for.
I think what it boils down to is I would tell my kids that Snape was a total ass, but he was doing the best he could, because he had to play both sides. He was kind of a creep that loved my mom, even up till the end, where like, I'm a crying baby in a crib, and he's just like holding my mom. That's kind of weird.
Yeah. But I think it was like J.K. Rowling's like attempt to like, hey, Snape really wasn't that bad, but it's like, no. And yeah, I 100% be in your boat. Like, I never had a teacher in any of my schooling experience that was his level of terrible, because that was real life.
Yeah.
But even the teachers I really liked, I'm not going to name my kids after. Yeah, that more.
Didn't he name him after a bunch of people too? His name was like Albus, Doofus, Rufus, Severus, Medufus. Potter,
yeah, I think it was like I know it was Albus, Severus, maybe something else, Potter.
Yeah, I thought it was like 3.
But I do know his whole thing was like, Albus, Severus, Potter, you are named after 2 headmasters of Hogwarts, and one of them was in Slytherin, and you should not like him. But anyway, like there's back to what my original point was, is just I want this book to have a satisfactory end and kind of at least give us some idea of the recovery they had to do, because Harry Potter did not give us that, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say also that I heard, like, I'm convinced this is just like a fan theory, but like people are saying that Hermione became the Minister of Magic, and I'm like, that'd be cool, but I want to know if the author said that or if you guys are just making stuff up.
Don't even get me started on the Malfoys. Now you got me started on the Malfoys.
You brought it up.
I think Draco got off too easy. I know he was just a kid, but he's the reason Albus got murdered.
Yeah.
And he let in the Death Eaters to the school. His dad was like twice a Death Eater. And didn't they mention that his dad was still around? He wasn't in Azkaban? Or
I don't remember. I know that he
was like in Cursed Child or something.
After the... No, it's after the 5th book. Lucius is arrested and actually sent to Azkaban, but he doesn't stay there long because, Voldemort rises to power pretty quickly and just gets all his people back. But as for like after Voldemort's downfall, I don't know what happens to Lucius. But I definitely think his parents should have been locked away forever. They could die in Azkaban because Lucius, first of all, was just like this piece of crap who even after like, oh, I was controlled by Voldemort, I didn't really want to serve him, blah, blah, blah. He was still like a super terrible person as like the school governor.
Yeah, I remember you almost killed Harry because if Davide hadn't been there, he would have
literally. And like he could have, I'm sure he claimed like, I didn't know what this was, but he gave freaking Voldemort's diary to a 11-year-old girl trying to cause. He probably didn't know that it might end her death.
He probably didn't know it was a Horcrux.
I don't think he didn't know it was a Horcrux, but he knew it was Voldemort's. He just didn't know what it was exactly, and so he was still like throwing stuff out there. He's been trying to get rid of Dumbledore since the beginning, and he uses his wealth to influence politics in his favor to things like get rid of Muggle-borns and such things. So he definitely deserves a harsh punishment of like, you need to be in Azkaban forever. Yeah. Same with his wife, even though she probably wasn't as much. But like Draco, that's hard because he was still like, if I was confronted with someone as powerful and as crazy and deadly as Voldemort, I don't know. I mean, you just think as like a 16, 17
you think of like
kid.
How harsh J.K. Rowling painted the Wizarding World to be. I mean, Hagrid was falsely accused of killing someone and got expelled and his wand broken and became an outcast. Even that after he was expunged and he realized he was innocent the whole time.
Yeah.
So Malfoy basically did the same thing. He let literal Death Eaters, followers of Voldemort, into Hogwarts, and then which resulted in the death of Dumbledore, which could easily be argued is one of the greatest wizards that ever lived in this world.
Yeah.
That's because of him. Yeah, Snape's the one who actually did it, but it wouldn't have been possible without Draco. So at the very least, he should have had his wand broken and he should have been expelled. Yeah. And he shouldn't have been allowed to continue his wizardingness.
Yeah.
Just based on the strictness of this world, where even if you're a kid and you accidentally use magic, you get in serious trouble. When you defend yourself against Dementors, you have to go to a whole trial.
I think that is a little different though, because like when that happened, that's when like Harry was saying like Voldemort's back, and then Fudge goes on all these crazy things like Dumbledore's trying to take over.
But still, that he had the avenues to do that. Like they were there. Like it wasn't like he was overstepping his power to do that. Yeah. They just kind of felt like he was being nitpicky.
Oh man, we can go so far into this apparently.
I'm not even talking about the Traitor anymore.
I know, seriously. I didn't realize I was starting such a huge tangent.
Apparently, we both thought about this a lot.
Yeah.
But it boils down to it's a kid's book, so we probably shouldn't try to attribute all these complex things into it.
Yeah.
But
I think J.K. Rowling did something that was like super hard to do. And I think she had to do certain things. I've heard people complain like, why was Harry put in these situations? How come Harry had to go save the Sorcerer's Stone? Why wasn't Dumbledore doing this? Blah, 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 blah. The list goes on and on. But like, if you think about it, and this is what I kind of thought about in response to what these guys say, is like, what kind of book would Harry Potter be if these things weren't left up to him to do? It'd be freaking boring.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be as interesting if Harry he didn't know about the Sorcerer's Stone or knew about it, but like, oh, I'm some stupid 11-year-old, and I don't know anything about the wizarding world. I just barely learned that I was a wizard, and all this stuff exists. I can't take care of this. I can't go save some stone when like all these great wizards can't save it or whatever.
Yeah.
And also arguing like how easily removed Dumbledore is. Like this big atrocity happens, and Dumbledore, I'll do it.
Another thing about the harshness of this world, of the wizarding world, as a punishment for 11-year-olds for being out of bed past curfew, they're forced to go into the Forbidden Forest. That Dumbledore at the beginning of the year said, don't go in there unless you want to die horribly. So for being out of your bed, an 11-year-old being out of your bed, they're like, go with this Hagrid and his dog and find out what's killing all the mother effing unicorns that are these super powerful magical creatures.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, split up. You two 11-year-olds go that way. I'm going to go this way.
That's the worst part of it.
And so I'm like, what in the world? If I was a parent, I was like, you Hogwarts trying to kill my kids. Literally. We broke curfew. Like,
and like
give them detention. Don't send them into a forest where werewolves live. Yeah,
honestly. And you and I have been kids, and you have kids now. And we know it's not that big a transgression. You're still like, hey, go to bed. But like, you went out of bed, so now we're going to give you this death-defying thing.
We're going to give you this punishment that might kill you.
Apparently, if you remember do you remember what Filth said that scene? I think he said
they used to string them up by their thumbs.
Yeah, like so. It sounds like the punishments have gone down a little bit, but I guess I would assume hanging by your thumbs doesn't kill you if they just rip off and you don't have thumbs or something. I don't know. Yeah.
But apparently, parents have no power or voice in the Harry Potter world.
Yeah, except for freaking Lucius
Malfoy. If my kid wrote me and said that the teacher gave us a punishment where I wrote on a quill and then it carved it into my hand, I'm like, I'm using an unforgivable curse on that bitch.
Yeah, seriously.
You're not torturing my child. Avada fucking Davra.
Right, honestly. Seriously, though.
Because all those kids probably came with scars on their hands. And Umbridge, like, I'm surprised she didn't have a mob of parents coming after her.
Literally, yeah. See, and I just think that the difficult thing is that either J.K. Rowling didn't think about these things or was just trying to make it an interesting story out of, like... It is interesting, I think, to read about people going to a wizarding school because there's it's not a school about math and science and English and all those boring things that all of us fell asleep during. It's about casting a shield charm. It's about summoning things from across the room or transforming an animal into a cup, interesting things. But even that is still you wouldn't be able to read 6 books about that. So
that's true. So there is that, and I think all kid books and kid movies kind of just remove parents and general adult supervision from the story. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a story. Yeah.
But we all just have to come with that we have to realize that this is a fantasy book, and in reality, if there was a wizarding school called Hogwarts and they did these things, those parents would be like, we're coming storming in and taking our kids because this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm homeschooling.
Because I seriously, I'd be like Voldemort, marshal an army of all the parents and bust down the doors and be like, who do I need to kill because my kid is being tortured? And also, Harry was stupid. Like, I want to know. I want J.K. Rowling to write a little thing if Harry would have gone to McGonagall or Dumbledore like Hermione kept bugging him to do, would they have done something? Would have been like, you can't torture you can't make a student carve. I will not lie into their hand because they're not doing what you want. And I think even though in that book they were trying to keep their heads low because they were trying not to be enemies with the Ministry, there's still a line. There's still you need to do something. And I remember later in that same book, I don't remember what student it was, but Umbridge brings a student to Dumbledore, and that says she told me all these things that the students have got this Dumbledore's Army Club, and she's roughly shaking the girl or something like that, and that's not much. That's not anything compared to what she's been doing to Harry this entire book. But with that, Dumbledore's like and he waves his wand and burns her hand, so she lets go of the student. I can't let you harm my student. Where the fuck were you when Harry was getting tortured? What the heck? And I don't know if that...
Is this also the same book where he was trying to, avoid Harry?
Yes. This one was where, he was trying to avoid Harry because he was
afraid that would attract Voldemort.
Exactly, yeah. But it's one of those things like, did you know this was happening? And if you did know, why the living hell did you not do anything about it?
I guess Harry's reluctance to go to adults kind of makes sense, just based on the way he was raised. Like his whole life, the Dursleys didn't do anything for him at school. No one really did anything for him, and he was just kind of always on his own. So I think there's definitely a hefty amount of that. So
yeah,
that's what I'm talking about, though. Like there's that, so it kind of like understands where Harry's coming from, his motivations. Like that's not in these Traitor books and these Covenant of Steel books. But anyway.
Oh, you're saying like there's an explanation of
like
why.
We can say like in that book we're like, why didn't he go to Dumbledore? We're like, oh, because his entire childhood he's basically been conditioned that he's on his own. No one cares about him.
Yeah. And even that, like when he comes to Hogwarts all these years, he's tortured mercilessly by Snape, and when he tries to speak up about him, people are like, oh no, Snape's a Hogwarts teacher. He wouldn't do those things. Yeah. And the same with like Malfoy. He's like severely bullied by Malfoy, and nothing really happens to that.
Exactly.
And you don't know the truth about me. I think one of the fantasy parts of this book is not necessarily to do with magic, but like if a child was raised like Harry, he would not be as strong as a person as Harry actually is.
Yeah.
I at least that's my belief. I think he would be a mess. He would have less confidence than Neville. He would just be destroyed. He would need all of whatever wizarding therapy they have.
I think he'd pretty much be like Snape. Remember Snape as a kid?
Was he? I don't
remember. He was kind of like in that similar situation, raised in an abusive family, but it turned him awkward, but also made him go down the path of evil.
Yeah.
Because then he also had this power where he could. I guess maybe I'm thinking of Voldemort because he was in the orphanage.
I don't remember because I swear, even though I've read these books like 4 times, I still forget.
I just remember because there was one scene. I remember the only thing I remember this is when Harry invaded Snape's mind. One scene was Snape was in his room shooting flies off the ceiling while there was yelling and shouting in the background. So it was just like, obviously he was raised in an abusive family, and he was like awkward, and he was also mercilessly bullied by James and them. Like, yeah,
which that's one part of Snape where I'm like, okay, I understand why you don't like his dad, because when it's revealed what James actually did to Snape, it's like, okay, you have every reason to hate James. However, you don't have any reason to hate Harry.
Yeah.
He's done nothing to you. And I hate where he's punishing Harry for the sins of his parent, his father, and that's just a load of crap, and Snape should have been cruciated for that. Right. Well, we've talked quite a bit about Harry Potter. We also talk about the Traitor if you watch the first bit of this episode.
Harry Potter is a good book. Even though we're bashing all these things,
yeah,
100% there's a chance I'm going to reread this probably in the next 6 months.
Yeah, I'm already rereading it.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm on the 5th book.
So even though there's all these flaws, it's still a story that's withstood the years.
Yeah, and I always chalk it down to it's just the nature of this story had to be written differently, because it just wouldn't have been a successful series if it was just like, oh, Harry went to Transfiguration class and he turned this whistle into a pocket watch, and then wonderful. He went to Charms and made a feather float. You'd be like, where? Oh.
And then it's like, and then there's an evil wizard and he has to go kill him, and you're like, what the crap?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, one thing I would love to do that I always fantasize about random things that I wish I could change. Like, I would love it if I could go back in time to when J.K. Rowling was writing the first book and be like, here is the entire series that you write. By the way, you're massively successful. Read these books and improve them. Because I also hate, like, I've got them right here, but like one thing that bugs me about books that I like is, oh, you can't see them very well. Can you see them?
No.
You can't see them. One thing that that makes me crazy about this series, because I like it so much, is that you look at the first 2 books and there's these little bitty things. They're like 300 pages. They're an easy read, a quick read. But then you get further on, they get chonkier and stuff. Like, can you fluff out these other ones a little bit more? Like, give us some more about what's going on. You got however long a school year is to write about stuff.
Yeah, like if you can imagine if the Sorcerer's Stone was 600 pages, then the first half of that could be Harry just acclimating to the wizarding world.
Yeah.
And it could be about him going to class and like dealing with Malfoy as a bully and his rising suspicions. And then all of a sudden he's like overhears something, and then it starts getting crazy.
And I think it would actually be boring to read more in detail about his classes for 6 books. But in the first book, if you go into not a crazy amount of detail, but in a decent amount of detail of all of his classes, that'd be super interesting. Because I think you go back and the first book never talks about Professor Quill's class, his defense against the dark arts. It talks about it slightly, but
I thought you didn't start defensive against the arts until second year.
I'm pretty sure it was the first year.
Oh, I thought it didn't even start until the second year. I could be wrong about that.
I don't remember. But then there's other teachers that she doesn't go into detail with.
But I feel like I don't think it would be boring. Because, I mean, if you think of the recent video game that came out, Hogwarts
Legacy.
There's tons of things that he could have joined clubs. He could have done a dueling tournament.
Yeah.
There was Quidditch. Like, you could have gone more into that.
More in detail.
You could have fleshed out the rivalry between him and Draco.
Mm-hmm.
And you could have even turned it into an eventual allyship. Like, they were bullies and enemies at first, but then eventually, like, went together. I don't know. That would have changed the whole story, actually. Don't do that. But I think there's definitely you could have made it really interesting. Yeah. But again,
she does kind of go that route. If we want to keep going about Draco and Harry kind of becoming allies, because in the last book, he does sort of help out by not being like, oh yeah, that's Harry Potter. He was like, oh, I have no idea who this is. What's wrong with his face? He looks weird. I don't know who this is. It's not Harry.
And then his mom saying that he was dead, even though he wasn't. But
so, and then they do.
But then I think all of this is again preluded by like this was made for like 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, there's lots of things.
But we were those 10-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're in our 30s and still talk about it. But we could go on for another hour and a half just about the things we really liked about the series, even too.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, I want to keep talking about it, but I'm also like, maybe we should call it.
That's kind of where I'm at too.
Yeah. Well, next episode, I think we're going to finish up the Traitor. See what all these people are going to do under the tutelage and command of Sir Alwyn, the all-knowing whatever.
The all-knowing scribe who's a genius about flipping everything.
Yes, we'll see how he's going to take down Evadine.
If he even does.
I guess we don't know. It's a big assumption. Maybe this will be a really big twist. Be like, oh, he failed and Evadine rules all.
Oh, and it turns out that Evadine was freaking Loren the whole time. Or Leonor.
Yeah.
Who's Loren? Oh, that's the Duchess Loren. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Until the next episode, we'll see y'all.
Till next time. Oh, damn it, Dale.
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to get to where I'm at on the book so I can see how much longer I have until it's done.
Like how many hours or pages you got?
Pages. I was just going to look and see how many chapters I had. Okay, I'm on chapter 35. There's 43 chapters. Okay, so I'm really close to the end. Like 8 chapters away.
But how long are those chapters?
I'm on page 419, and then there's 502 pages.
Oh, so not very. You're not even 100 pages away.
Yeah, I should definitely be able to finish it this week. So
nice. Alrighty.
It's over.